Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you all of the books that I have read in November. And November was a little bit of a mixed bag for me because at the beginning of November I had COVID, and at the end of November I had some terrible migraines again. So it wasn't the best reading month for sure, but I still got quite a few books read, so let's get into them. So first of all, in November I finished a first audiobook, and that one was In the Shadow of Spindrift House by Mira. Now this one is a little novella where we follow a group of teenagers who have been teenage sleuths, but now they're out of school and they're about to grow up and become adults. And so they have this one last case that they want to do. And we're specifically following one of those teenagers, and she's just not ready to give up. So she doesn't really want to stop. So she hopes that with this last case, she will find a way to convince the others to keep going. Now that's the cat, if you can see her. She's my little troublemaker. So Mira for me is a difficult author. You might know that this is also Seanan McGuire, so it's a pen name. And I have read Into the Drowning Deep, and I thought it was one of the most boring books I've read in my whole life. I really did not like it. So I thought I'd give her another chance with this one, and the reason for that was that I could listen to it for free, and I kind of like the idea of it. But honestly, I just don't really know what to say about this one. In the end, I decided to give it 3 stars. I really don't know who the target audience of this little novella would be, because on the one hand, the writing style for most of the book is very juvenile, so I wouldn't say that this is like a good adult horror story. But then on the other hand, there is a very, very gruesome scene in there, and people are dying. So I also wouldn't say this is a great read for teenagers. So who is supposed to enjoy this? I don't know. I certainly did not really enjoy this. Now keep in mind that I had COVID, so that could play into it as well, because I just wasn't feeling great, and then maybe I also didn't like the book that much. I don't know. But overall, I would not really recommend this. But maybe it's just a fluke, you know? Maybe me and Mira we're just not made for each other. And then on the same day, I also finally finished The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. Now this was a book I originally wanted to read in October, but I wanted to do a buddy read with my best friend, and then with our schedules we finally decided that it wasn't working out, so I just went ahead and finished the book anyways. Now in this one we are following Mary Jekyll, who is the daughter of Dr. Jekyll. Her mum has just passed away, and now Mary is kind of getting into the family secrets. She meets a mysterious other girl who might be her sister, and then the shenanigans just keep going. And I don't know, I really wanted to absolutely love this one, and unfortunately it did not happen. I feel like this is a solid book for what it's trying to do, but I just expected so much more from this. For example, this book is surprisingly straight. And I really thought that if we were focusing in on all of these female characters from all of these classic gothic horror kind of tales, that we would get some more queer themes as well, but no, we don't. And then I also thought we would get more girl power, but then in the end we actually have a famous male character who kind of steals the show. He's everywhere, you just can't get rid of him. So yeah, overall, even though I still gave this 4 stars and I think that it was a fun read, I just was disappointed with this, and that was sad. I wanted to love this. Now another thing I did not really agree with in this one is the way that some of these characters that we know from classic literature were portrayed, especially if you have watched and loved Penny Dreadful, as I have. some of the characterizations are very different in this one, and I can't agree because, you know, I'm a sucker for Penny Dreadful. So then the next book I finished was an audiobook again. It was All the Murmuring Bones by A.G. Slatter. And I have done a separate reading vlog where I talked in depth about mermaid books, and this was one of the 3 books that I talked about. So if you want to hear all of my thoughts, then you can go and check it out. We get more cat cameo. And she's just not happy. You want to sit on that book? I'm gonna need that book. Hmm? My love. Her little ear. Oh my. Okay, so All the Murmuring Bones is a dark, kind of fairy tale-esque gothic story about a family that has sacrificed children for a deal with the Merc people, and that is the reason why they were very influential, very rich, just a big family. But for a couple of years now, this has all been crumbling down, and we're following the last heir kind of this family as she's trying to find her way in the world. Does the cat sit on my lap now? Yes, she does. What am I supposed to do? I can't work like that. If you've watched my Christmas audiobook audit, the same thing happened there. And it's very awkward to film with a very big cat on your lap. So for this book, I really enjoyed it. I decided to give it 4 stars, even though enjoyment-wise it was more like a 3.75. So I did like it. I liked the main character, and I really liked the ending. Like, the things that happened towards the end were so much more interesting to me than like the meandering middle part, because basically the beginning is awesome. We hear the backstory of that family, it's eerie, it's intriguing, the writing is gorgeous. But then we have that middle part where our character is kind of traveling through the world and meeting all of these mythical beings like Selkies and Kelpies and whatever. And it was just a little bit too much. So if it would have been more of what we got at the end, where we then have the final mysteries and stuff like that, I would have loved that. But it just took too long for me to get there, basically. And I think it had a little bit of a weird pacing, but I still enjoyed it. It was actually my favorite book of that mermaid vlog, so I would recommend if you're interested. Then next up, I finished the brick that the cat just sat on, and that is European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman by Theodora Goss. This is the 2nd book in that series, and for some reason it is twice as big as the first and the last book. And I think I didn't need to be. We have a lot of traveling in here, as you would guess from the title. So we're leaving England and we're going to the country, to Europe, to the continent. That's what I wanted to say. And we're traveling through France, through Austria, all the way to Hungary. And I have my issues with this one. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars because, first of all, it shouldn't have been longer than the first one. There's no reason for it to be that long. There were so many cakes and dinners and just food, picnics, stuff we take on the way to eat in the carriage. All of that could have been cut, to be honest. And then we also just meet a lot of characters that we know from literature, and I just felt like some of it was just not necessary to tell the story. But we do get some gays in here, so at least there's that. I always have an issue with books that take us into different countries, and when things are then done incorrectly. And that happened quite a bit in here. So there were quite a few things language-wise, but also just general logic wise that were not correct in this one, and that always bothers me. So I think it was still fun, but way, way, way too long. And yeah, oh, I wanted to love the series so much. Why is it not happening? Where is the magic everyone promised me? It's just when I put these down, I have no desire to pick them back up. Like while I'm reading, it's fine, but there's like no intrigue at all with these for me. So if you know like the stories that these books are based on, a lot of it is just so obvious as well. I think that's with the first book more than with this one, but oh well. You will get a whole vlog with all of my thoughts for that. Okay, then the next book I finished, I also have a separate reading vlog for, so if you want to hear all of my thoughts, I would recommend that. But it was White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi, and this book I was very intrigued by. It mentions witches, which you will always get me with a witch. But this also has kind of like a sentient house, and that's one of my buzzwords. So I wasn't quite sure whether Helen Oyeyemi would work for me because her books are very unique and I think you either love them or you don't. But fortunately, I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I think you should definitely not read the synopsis on the back because you will expect something completely wrong and different. Like for example, one of the characters we have in here, Ori, or I don't know how to say the name, she's mentioned as the best friend of Miranda, our character that we're following in here. And this is not a friendship, you guys. Like, this is a very, very sexual, romantic, touchy. It's, you know. And apart from that, all the other things, just don't read the synopsis. We're following in this one a family where the maternal line has always lived in this house. And now, with this family that we're looking at right now, the mother has passed away and she had twins. So we have Miranda and Elliot. And when the mother passed away, Miranda's condition worsened quite a bit. And she has, I think it's called pica. So the desire to eat things that are not food, and she wants to eat chalk. And we also have Elliot, who is worried about his twin sister, but also ready to kind of move on and find his own way. And then we have the father, I don't remember his name. And he made the house into a bed and breakfast place. And so there's also guests in this house, and we also have people there who work there and also live there with them. And we are following this family while Miranda and Elliot are finishing school and going off to college. And the house is making some choices, I would say. So this is very weird, very, very weird, but I thought it was still very interesting. Like, it definitely caught my attention. I liked the second half way more than the first half. In the first half, we really focus in on Miranda and Elliot and their father and their life and Miranda's condition and their family. And in the second half, we get the perspective of Ori, or whatever her name is, and she is a black girl, and she meets Miranda when they both go off to... where did they go? Like one very prestigious college. I don't remember which one it was. So they are basically like at college together and have this like very, very strong attraction. And I really love that second part as well. And so they all get sucked into whatever is going on with Miranda and the house. Would definitely recommend if you like weird books. But I can absolutely understand if you hated this one. And then I also finished my next audiobook, which was Foxglove by Adalyn Grace. This one is the sequel to Belladonna, which I listened to last year, and I wasn't quite sure whether I wanted to continue on last year, but then this year I saw the cover everywhere and I was like, I think I want to read that. So we do have some changes from the first book. In the first book, we followed a girl called Signa, and she was kind of cursed and people around her kept dying until she gets into a family that kind of take her in because she's lost her family altogether. And in this family, the mother has just passed away and the daughter is suffering from a mysterious illness, and Signa is convinced that it is a poisoning. So she's trying to solve this case while also having a little bit of fuss with death. And in the second book, we're still following Signa and death, but we have a new player, and that is Fate, the brother of Death. And then we also get the perspective of a new character, which I can't mention because it is kind of a spoiler who it is, but we get another girl character who shows up, basically. And I really enjoyed this one. It was interesting, fantastical, entertaining. I think that I got from this book what I wanted. I think it was a good sequel, so if you like Belladonna, you're probably gonna like this one. I feel like in this one, the whole solving the mystery bit that we get wasn't quite as strong, but it was still in a way that you could always guess along who it could be. And I did guess part of it right, but not all of it, so that's always fun. So I gave it 4 stars, and I would recommend if you like these like fantastical, romancy, mystery, kind of dark books. And that brings us to the last book I finished in November and my favorite read of the month, and that was Warrior Girl Unearthed by Angeline Boulley. This one is the sequel to The Firekeeper's Daughter, which I read a couple of years ago and absolutely loved. So when I heard that Angeline Boulley is coming out with a new book and that it will be set in the same community, but a couple of years later, I was very, very excited for this one. In this one, we're following a girl called Perry, and she is the niece, I think, the niece of the main character of the first book. So we have a new generation, but we do also meet a lot of people that we've seen before in the first book. So I did not reread the first book, and I kind of regretted that a little bit because I missed out on some of the character interactions where I just couldn't quite remember who all the characters were from the previous book. But that's all very much side stuff. So if you're only here for the main storyline, then you can definitely read this one by itself. You don't have to go back and read the first one, even though I would recommend it. In this one, we are following Perry, who has to do an internship for the summer, and she is not very happy about that, but the internship leads her to learn about repatriation and the struggles that communities have when they interact with universities and try to get remains of their ancestors back so they can rebury them and stuff like that. So Perry gets kind of sucked into this whole thing. Also, not only remains, but also like sacred objects and stuff like that, like everything that falls under this umbrella of repatriation. And yeah, she starts or has the idea of a heist because she can see that like the official legal ways don't lead anywhere, the universities are blocking everything, and so she's like, what if we do it our way? Now, I wouldn't expect too much from the heist thing because it does take quite a while to get there. So if you're only here for like Ocean's 11 kind of stuff, that's not what this book is. But I felt like the way it was incorporated felt quite realistic. And I actually really enjoyed also the ending, the way that it played out in the end. I thought again was quite realistic, which with a lot of heist stories it's probably not, to be fair. So I really loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I think I still like the first book a little bit more because it had even more of the community coming together aspects and stuff like that. I feel like, I don't know if it is actually correct because my brain can, you know, mix up memories and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one as well. I felt like the look that we get into this topic of repatriation, but then also just the characters and the community, it all just felt so good. Like, I loved reading this book. It was one that I always loved putting on when I was doing my chores or like walking to work. You know, sometimes I have audiobooks that I just put on to put them on, but with this one I was always excited to listen to more, and I would highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. It is a YA kind of thrillery heist novel, so if you absolutely hate YA, this might not work for you. But for me personally, this is one of those books where I'm just so happy that they exist, that we can have these stories told, that, you know, young people have the opportunity to go to a bookshop and buy a story like that. I'm very happy about that. So 5 stars from me, would highly recommend. And with that, we have come to the end of this video. So if you liked it, leave a like or a nice comment. I always appreciate those. And if you subscribe, I will talk to you soon. Bye. Now look at this. This is how I filmed this video. Just some evidence.